Hi, everyone. I'm C. Craig. I am a fortunate writer and director who gets the opportunity to make awesome things with awesome people, many of which are out there watching me stand in front of cameras that they know I really love, right? So I want to give a little bit of a talk about like a subject that is a scary one in our particular industry at this particular moment. Uh, AI or procedural machine learning, and how me and my team use it in order to like help make us more efficient and make things go faster and smoother, because I always talk to them about like the furthest distance in film is from like inside our heads to outside. And so this is how we do it. So this particular talk is on visualization. And I want to start off by thinking about like for me, what it is I tend to dream a lot and imagine a lot and think of a lot of things, for better or worse. And I want to be able to talk to the team about like this is the color palette, this is the vibe, this is the moment that we want to try to capture. And so like let's dive into it a little bit. There we go. Let's go back one. There we go. All right. So the images that y'all see and things that y'all will see today use Kyber, Midjourney, CSM, Runway, Dolly, and some Firefly and Blockade. And that's Chica. That's one of the films that Eric and I are working on, and our amazing team are working on right now. So first things first with us is that you want to be able to build your world, right? What world are you looking at? What are you thinking about? Like, you know, uh, I learned filmmaking in New York in undergrad, and our professors talked to us about don't try to make films that you can't afford to build yourself, right, with your team. And that was a major thing for me. I never made like anything that was a larger scale because that was a credo that I held on to very tightly until I wound up in a conversation on Zoom with Paramount's head of features, Mika Price. And I had sent her this small kind of indie script, and she was really excited about it. I knew we were going to have this conversation, so I was prepared. I was like the most ready you could be to have this conversation. And the moment that the Zoom comes on, she's like, "What else you got?" And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" She was "Oh, what kind of movies do you want to do?" And so I started telling her all these small indie movies, and I saw the look on her face just kind of like get sadder and sadder. And she was like, "See, Craig, I can't make anything under $50 million." Right? She was like, "What else do you have?" And at that moment, I didn't have anything. Right? And I was trying to freestyle my way out of it, and it wasn't working. So she was like, "Let me know when you have something larger and come back." So like that night, I wrote Fathead, and like we were able to make a much larger like scale film. So thinking about the worlds that you have and like the types of films that I do now and think about now are much larger in scale. And don't like the great thing with tools like Midjourney in particular with this is that you can help your team understand what it is you're visualizing and the type of worlds that you want to do. And uh, my own outlook on it is that yes, AI and procedural is magic until you need it to be specific, right? The moment you need specificity, it becomes a major endeavor in prompt writing, and ultimately, if you look at prompting like its own language, like many of us speak a language, very few of us are poets. Like it takes work to become a poet in a particular language, right? So let's say you have a world where you got a teddy bear that like knows how to swim and he's floating down the river and doing your thing. Like that might be a hard concept for your team to understand, but these types of tools give you that opportunity to be able to show them like what you want to do and how you want to handle it. And the producers seem to like it when they know what I'm talking about. So this particular still, like some things take more time than others, right? This is a bit of the concept art for a project that we're working on, Chickaboom, where I wanted her room to be a certain type of way. It's set in 1969 New York City, and this kid wants to be a magician, and she's just kind of like she's a kid's kid, but her world is different. So I wanted to be able to show that and make the distance between my conversations with the production designer not have to iterate as much as they would normally have to if I'm just telling you like, well, it's kind of like this and it's kind of like that, right? You can give them an example of what it is, and they could take it and they can run with it. Like my team knows that every department head, they hold the flashlight for the dark place, right? So what I could tell you is like, hey, I want to go this direction, but you know the way, I follow you, right? So that when they have this, they can go from there. This is another part of her room because at her windowsill, she has a ton of stuffed animals and things like that that become a part of the film. So the other thing you want to be able to do and talk about is setting mood. And these tools are fantastic for setting mood and helping you understand what type, help your gaffers, your cinematographers understand what you want to do. That like nothing speaks to us. If any of us, I'm sure a lot of us here work in film, images are our life. It's how we like communicate. It's what we do. So when I'm talking about a specific type of mood, you know what I'm talking about because I can sit there and take the time to do it. Now, this particular image took about 3 hours to make, right? Like there's about, I don't know, about 70 ones that didn't work with this. But you take that, but it's worth the time to do because when I spend the time to do it, that means I don't have to make my team spend the time doing it, right? And things change. Like, so I'm going to show you a series of this. Like, so this was made in Mid Journey 4, right? And I just kind of gave it a thing. It was like, I wanted to see what a coffin looked like just sitting in a field by itself. And that's what it thought a coffin was, right? This was like 8 months ago. That's what it thought it was, right? That's what it is now, right? That's yesterday. That's what, so it's learning, we're learning, and it's becoming a better communicator for us. And that's what it thought it looked like this morning, right? So it's and that took about maybe like honestly 20 minutes of like kind of working through different versions of that, but just kind of seeing how these things progress and how they become better over time and making the iterative process shorter and shorter so we spend more time creating and doing the things that we want to do as filmmakers, as storytellers. The other thing, after once you get out of the world, start thinking about the people in this particular world. This is, believe it or not, the longest image I've ever had to work on in with generative AI. Is this image took probably every bit of 18 hours or so, right? Just going through different, like, I mean, I have a whole world of folders of different things that I try different focal lengths, different, times of day and things like that, just to get the shadows and everything how I wanted to for that, for a project that we're working on. This was one of the ones that didn't cut the mustard for it, but it was just like it understood kind of where I wanted to go, but there was mistakes made, and you kind of have to keep going with it. So one of the beautiful things that when you start pairing these generative tools together, when you're taking things out of one and bringing it into another, you can start getting more specific, and you can get the lighting exactly right. You can get the characters exactly how you want them, and it's going to be more and more of a useful tool in the sense of you want specificity. Film is about specificity, right? And once you can start getting that, and it now that it uh, AI tends to understand our eyeballs a little bit better than it used to, because people would be looking in all different directions and it wouldn't vibe how you wanted to. It kind of took away from the mood and the moment that you wanted to create. So, working on a project about the island of Dr. Moreau, and I wanted to see what how I can get these characters to look because I wanted to talk to our costume designer with it and have her understand exactly what I wanted to do with the like how to mold humans and animals and what was my vision for it. And so it took the time. It took the time to spend and do that out. So I wasn't farming out that work to my friends, my teammates. I don't want to send you on a wild goose chase for several days and have to wait for a week for you to come back when I can give you this, and that week would be better spent in actually building and creating. So this is where it gets a little bit uncanny for a lot of folks because like obviously this is not a photograph, but like you can make people feel like it's a photograph and it could capture mood and it could capture the lighting, bless you, capture the lighting that you want and in the moment. And when I did this was one from 6 months ago talking. I gave it the prompt and gave it the specific time of day, the specific focal length, the specific aperture, and I wanted the guys in a huddle, rugby huddle, and this is what it had like probably about 6 months ago, and this is what it has now, right? We're getting better, we're getting stronger, we're getting to a better understanding. And this is closer to what I had in mind in the first place, but I had to wait for the science to catch up to where the imagination is, right? And that's the beautiful thing about it, is like everyone is so worried about it taking jobs. This creates more jobs, at least in my universe, because now I can get to like, hey, this is what we want to do. Let's start building. Let's start talking about like, where's this field at? How, let's get these uniforms together. Let's figure out these things like that. So this is another reason it's fantastic, is like thinking about color and how light hits characters, right? So I wanted to show how light hits a natural character versus light hitting an animated character. This took a obscene amount of time to get right, but it helped the team out greatly. And Elisa, who's one of our producers for Chickaboom, it's going to be able to help her out with it, and non Lee help them out to get it built, because they know how I want light to hit the characters, right? The other thing is that you could start seeing, so when you do pitch decks, I tell a lot of my filmmaker friends that uh, there's a lot of us out here that are filmmakers, right? So how many people use Shot Deck, right? Shot Deck is fantastic, it's incredible, but what it doesn't have is your work inside of it, right? I've seen probably a couple thousand pitch decks from people, and I've seen probably about 10 or 20 movies just over like used in those pitch decks, right? They're using like, everybody's turning in their work with Roger Deakins' work, right? And like, so unless we all got Roger Deakins on retainer, we got to start using other things outside of that. So what this allows us to do, what these tools allow us to do, is to figure out what it is in our mind and our imagination that we want to accomplish and what we want to get to. And like I said, it does take time, but it's time well spent, because it helps you understand what it is you want. Because the moment you get something and it's not what you want, you know that you haven't quite said it in the right way to this, to the in the prompt. Are you using the right words? Are you describing it the right way? Are you putting one thing before you should put the other thing? Because it's going to take it as it gets it, so you work it through. So again, in the animated world, I was working on a character for Chickaboom. This is her father, and modeling the things out, and I really wanted the costume to fit a certain type of way and work out like that. So it just shows you throughout all mediums you can use this, and you no longer have to be kind of pigeonholed into one way of imagination, one way of thinking. Uh, where are we at? Okay. All right. So another thing it does, it gives you an idea of thinking about like who these characters are, right? At least a broad overview. The hardest part is not getting kind of married to like what these characters are pushed out, and remember that your job as a filmmaker is to find the person, not just like create the person. And it works throughout all different stylization types. You can try it in different mediums and seeing how it works out for you for that. But it's a beautiful tool, and it helps your team to learn a lot quicker and to show you what they're thinking about, because a lot of times I'll get things in from them, and it helps me understand exactly what they're pitching to me. It could be as realistic as you want it to be, or like everything on this particular shot that took the time was figuring out the exact, like, getting that green mold on the steps took a while, right? Getting detail and understanding, like, so I'm a big mood person, because to me films are moods, and it's what you're accomplishing, and making sure the number one thing that a filmmaker's job is to make sure we're all making the same movie. It takes a lot of amazing people to put a movie together. We want to make sure we're all making the same movie. That movie can be a horror too. Playing around with this stuff. So thinking about and some of these were just kind of ones that didn't have specific projects attached to them, and once they got created, then they did get a project attached to them. Like Tip Top was an accident, right? I was working on different things for the that same window shot that I was talking to y'all about earlier, and it gave that really tall giraffe, and I like started pitching a story about a tall giraffe that comes to life and has to pick a kid to like be paired with for the rest of their life. So that's another bonus of like getting in there and just kind of playing around and figuring things out. So this is through Runway, and if you want to start seeing some like motion and things with it, like Runway is a fantastic way to animate things and to give your team a bit of more of an understanding of what you might want to do. There's a bridge troll. There's a Mars project that I'm working on, and it's simple, but like it helps capture the essence of what you're trying to get to. And they're like, okay, that's how we want Mars to look. That's how we want it to feel when they're out there walking. There's the earliest version of Chica. I guarantee she will not look like that at the end, but that's what the first version of her looked like and how it worked out. And with Blockade, you're able to like really like craft out the environments and how you want your environments to look. It's a horror film that we're working on. Oh, and I guess the last few things I wanted to show is with CSM, you have the ability to take a image and then make a 3D render of it, right? So it has that process, and it's a really quick and beautiful and simple way to start making assets for yourself and for your films. So you don't have to think about huge budgets. You could think about on the smaller side. And that's my universe, man. That's how I spend my time in creating and crafting. Questions, comments, complaints?
Um, Thank you.
So actually, I'm going to start with the first question, C. Craig.
Yes, sir.
You talk about the poetry of prompts.
Yes.
What is the the largest number of prompts you had to use to get one of those images?
So for a single image, I'm not sure, but for our 12-page pitch deck for Chica, for those 12 pages, those 12 images took 371 prompts. I will never forget that number. It took a long, long time to do that, but like so, I guess if you divide that through, but it took a lot.
I really believe in this idea that you're promoting of the poetry of prompts.
It feels like it.
Yeah. All right, so we got some questions out here. I saw some hands up. Here we go.
Do you always keep your prompts secret?
No, the first thing I usually did, like, so you know how on Discord you can make your own server, because I'm not a super communal person in the like in the dojo. When you're in the dojo, you're practicing like when it's time to go fight, it's a public thing. But when we first started the animation that we're working on, the first thing they asked for was like, oh, send over your prompts, and I was like, oh, but like it's part of the world. Like now, personally, I feel like the prompts are the art of it, right? But it is good to share them so people understand what you want to do and so they can create further. But at the beginning, I certainly was much more personal about it.
All right,
Yes.
next. Here, let me get you, Dave.
Do you use any image-to-image stuff, or is it all text-to-image?
It's both, right? So it starts off text to image, and then once we lock on to a character or a concept, then we're roping it in with things.
All right, another question. Wolfie. Oh,
Hi, from
What's
the
up?
booth here. What's up?
What's
So in your iterations with these AI, in your experience, like which iterations are you making, like consciously? What has worked well for you? Like which inputs are you giving the AI that AI is taking in well enough compared to other ones?
Believe it or not, one of the things that has been really useful to me recently is giving the prompt, giving the year that the project exists in the prompt. So it pulls aesthetically from things. If I say, oh, this is from, give me something from 2016, that type of vibe, or something from 1972, and instead of just saying a hippie girl running down the street, you like give it a specific year, give it the specific, like specificity is everything. So like the more specific you get, the better outcome you'll get.
all right, one last question.
Nope.
No, nobody else? All right. Thank you so much, C. Craig. Amazing as
Anytime.
always.